The alien vessel drifted, a massive carcass of metal and forgotten technology, deep within the void. The Scar Empire had deemed it a failure, a broken experiment, too inefficient, too weak to be of any use. So they left it behind, a hollow husk floating in the darkness. But where the Scar saw junk, humanity saw potential. When the derelict was discovered by a scavenger crew from Earth, they knew they had stumbled upon something extraordinary. It was old, yes. Broken, perhaps. But beneath the dust and fractured circuits lay a power the Scar had underestimated. A power humanity would claim as their own. Captain Darius Cole stood at the command deck of the salvage vessel Nomad, staring at the alien wreck through the viewport. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of any human ship, its hull covered in jagged scars from battles long forgotten. Deep fissures ran along its surface, evidence of whatever conflict had left it abandoned. "Damn," muttered his engineer, Carson Reed. "That's got to be the biggest score we've ever found." Darius nodded. "If we can fix it?" Reed snorted. "If. Captain, give me 6 months and the right crew, and I'll make this thing fly again." Darius turned to his crew. "Then let's get to work." The first few weeks were brutal. The ship's systems were ancient, operating on principles no human had encountered before. The power core was fried, the engines unresponsive, and the AI, a fragmented, near-feral intelligence, was barely functional. The Scar had abandoned it for a reason. But humans were nothing if not persistent. Piece by piece, they brought the ship back to life. Earth's best engineers reverse-engineered the alien tech, replacing outdated systems with human ingenuity. The core was rebuilt with human fusion technology, stabilizing the power grid. The engines, originally designed for slow interstellar travel, were reconfigured with human gravitic drives, making them twice as fast. And then there was the weaponry. The Scar had stripped the ship of its original arsenal, but they had left behind the framework. And humanity? Humanity knew war. They understood the necessity of firepower. Plasma cannons were mounted where old railguns once stood. Missile silos were integrated into the underbelly, capable of launching payloads far deadlier than anything the Scar had imagined. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was something else, something new. They named it the Revenant. Word spread across human space. A ship unlike any other, a fusion of alien sophistication and human tenacity. Governments wanted it. Corporations sought to buy it. But Darius and his crew refused to hand it over. This was more than just a ship. It was a message. When the Scar first learned of the Revenant, they laughed. A primitive species playing with scraps, trying to build something beyond their means. Then the Revenant entered battle. A Scar patrol fleet attempted to seize the ship, expecting an easy victory. They were met with a force unlike anything they had encountered before. The human modifications made the vessel faster, stronger, deadlier. The patrol fleet was decimated in minutes. Humanity had taken the Scar's discarded failure and turned it into a nightmare. And now, the galaxy would know fear. The Scar didn't take the loss lightly. The destruction of their patrol fleet wasn't just a setback, it was an insult. Humans, those primitive creatures who had barely scratched the surface of deep space warfare, had taken their discarded technology and turned it into something deadly. That could not be allowed. A warship was dispatched. Not just any warship, but a Hunter-class Dreadnought, a ship designed to track and exterminate high-value threats. Its mission was clear: find the Revenant, destroy it, and make an example of its crew. Darius Cole sat in the dimly lit command deck of the Revenant, watching the holographic tactical display with narrowed eyes. The Scar ship had been tailing them for 3 days now, always just at the edge of their scanners, waiting. "They're testing us," said Lieutenant Mara Valdez, the ship's tactical officer. She leaned forward, arms crossed, studying the sensor readings. "Seeing if we'll run, seeing if we'll panic." Darius scoffed. "They picked the wrong ship." Carson Reed, the engineer, glanced up from his console. "That thing's a Dreadnought, Captain. Even with all the upgrades we made, we're outgunned." Darius smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the grin of a man who had been underestimated one too many times. "We're also faster," he said, "and we're not fighting this battle on their terms." Reed sighed. "You've got that look again." Mara smirked. "Yeah, he does." Darius turned to the pilot, Jin-Woo Park. "How's our jump drive looking?" Jin-Woo ran a quick check. "Charged and ready, but if we use it now, we'll have to let the core cool for at least 12 hours before another jump." "Good," Darius said. "We won't need another one. Set a course for that asteroid field near Xylos 9. Mara raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight in an asteroid field?" Darius leaned back in his chair. "I want them to think we're running." The Scar Dreadnought pursued, its massive bulk cutting through space like a predator on the hunt. From its command deck, Commander Zelvier watched with amusement as the human ship altered course. "They flee," one of his officers reported. "As expected." Zelvier flexed his talons, pleased. "Cowards. Maintain pursuit. We will finish this in minutes." Inside the Revenant, alarms blared as the Dreadnought closed in. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a chaotic, shifting maze of rock and ice, illuminated by a dying red sun. The perfect battlefield. "Divert power to thrusters," Darius ordered. "We need to make this look good." Jin-Woo executed the maneuver perfectly, pushing the Revenant into a spiraling, uncontrolled entry into the asteroid field. From the Dreadnought's perspective, it looked like the humans were panicking, running blind, exactly what Darius wanted them to think. As soon as they entered the field, he barked his next order. "Cut all power except for life support. Make us look dead." The ship went dark. No engines, no shields, no signals, just a lifeless chunk of metal floating among the asteroids. The Scar fell for it. The Dreadnought slowed, approaching cautiously. The crew was already celebrating, believing they had forced the humans into a fatal mistake. Then the Revenant struck. The ship came alive in an instant, engines roaring to life as concealed railguns and missile pods deployed. In the span of 5 seconds, the first barrage of missiles streaked through the void, detonating against the Dreadnought's shields. Before the Scar could react, the Revenant was moving. Not running, but hunting. Darius' voice was cold as he issued his next command. "Fire everything." The hunter had become the prey. The asteroid field erupted in fire and chaos. The Revenant danced through the void, weaving between tumbling rocks as it unleashed hell upon the Scar Dreadnought. Plasma rounds and missile salvos hammered into the enemy ship's shields, forcing them to flicker and strain under the relentless assault. Inside the Dreadnought, Commander Zelvier was no longer amused. He was furious. "What?" he hissed, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "How did they—" A second barrage cut him off. A pair of human torpedoes slammed into the side of the Dreadnought, sending a violent tremor through its frame. Zelvier dug his talons into his command chair, seething. "Shields at 62%, an officer reported. "Their attacks are too precise. They planned this," Zelvier growled. "This was a trap." The realization was bitter, but the battle was far from lost. The Dreadnought was a war machine, larger and stronger than the Revenant. It had the firepower to reduce an entire colony to dust, and now it would turn its full might on these cunning little vermin. "Return fire!" Zelvier roared. "Focus all cannons on that ship. I want them obliterated." Inside the Revenant, Alarms shrieked as the Scar retaliated. "Incoming fire!" Mara Valdez shouted, gripping the edge of her console as the Dreadnought unleashed a storm of plasma bolts. "Evasive maneuvers!" Darius barked. Jin Woo was already moving, the ship twisted, dodging between asteroids with impossible precision. Plasma blasts seared past them, some grazing their hull, but most struck the surrounding debris instead. Explosions sent massive chunks of rock spiraling into the battlefield, forcing the Scar to adjust their aim. "We can't take a direct hit from those main cannons," Reed warned. "One clean shot, and we're space dust." Darius's mind raced. He had expected resistance, but not this level of firepower. The Dreadnought was built to crush fleets, and they were just one ship. They needed another edge, something the Scar wouldn't see coming. His eyes flicked to the sensor display. The asteroid field was dense, but there was one rock in particular. Large, unstable, with deep fissures of volatile ice running through it. Perfect. "Mara," Darius said. "You see that big bastard at grid 7-8? She followed his gaze and smirked. "I see it." "Load the remaining torpedoes. Target the fissures." Mara's fingers danced over the controls. "Torpedoes locked." Darius grinned. "Fire." The Dreadnought's bridge trembled again as another explosion rocked the battlefield. But this one wasn't a direct hit. Zelvier's eyes snapped to the main screen. The humans hadn't aimed at his ship. They had targeted an asteroid, a massive one, and now it was coming straight for them. The torpedoes had cracked the asteroid apart, releasing a shockwave that sent a kilometer-wide chunk of frozen rock hurling toward the Dreadnought's port side. "Evasive maneuvers," Zelvier snarled. Too late. The asteroid slammed into the Dreadnought's hull, crushing a section of its weapons array and sending it into a chaotic spiral. Systems flickered. Shields collapsed. The Dreadnought shuddered violently, its engines struggling to correct its trajectory. And the Revenant was already moving in for the kill. "Direct hit," Mara reported, her voice triumphant. "Their shields are down." Darius saw the opportunity and seized it. "Charge the plasma cannons. Target their reactor core." Reed hesitated. "Captain, if we do that—" "I know." Darius's voice was cold. "Fire." A final barrage erupted from the Revenant, spearing through the Dreadnought's weakened hull. Plasma bolts ripped into its core, and for a moment there was silence. Then, a blinding explosion engulfed the Scar warship, consuming it in a fiery death. The Hunter-class Dreadnought, the ship sent to destroy the Revenant, was nothing more than scattered wreckage now, drifting lifeless in the void. A quiet settled over the command deck. The battle was over. The crew of the Revenant had won. Mara exhaled sharply. "Holy hell!" Reed leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. "I can't believe we just did that!" Jinwoo let out a breathless laugh. "That was insane." Darius said nothing at first. He just stared at the wreckage, the cooling embers of the once mighty Dreadnought. Then, finally, he spoke. "Set a course for the nearest relay station. Let's send a message." Mara tilted her head. "Message?" Darius' expression was unreadable. "The Scar need to know. Their junk just took out one of their best warships." A slow grin spread across Mara's face. "You want to taunt them?" Darius leaned back in his chair, his smirk returning. "I want them to be afraid." The transmission was sent. A simple message, direct and unyielding. "Your discarded failure just destroyed your prized hunter. Humanity doesn't run. We don't surrender. We adapt. We survive. And now we are coming for you." The words rippled across the Scar command network like a seismic shockwave. At first, there was disbelief. No primitive species should have been able to do this. Then came the rage. Humanity had not just defied them, they had humiliated them. A war council was assembled in the Scar high chambers. Lords of the Empire hissed and clicked, debating furiously over how to respond. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others, the more cautious among them, warned of underestimating these creatures. "Humans are scavengers," one of the warlords spat. "They take what they do not deserve, patch it together with crude machinery, and call it power. This is an anomaly." An older commander, Zelvier, let out a low growl. "They took our abandoned corpse of a ship and turned it into something formidable. Tell me, warlord, how many other discarded vessels float in the void? How many failures have we left behind that they could resurrect?" The chamber fell silent. Because that was the true terror of the humans, not just their defiance, not just their unexpected resilience. It was their ability to take what others abandoned and turn it into a weapon. And what if the Revenant was only the beginning? Aboard the Revenant, Darius Cole stood at the viewport, watching the debris of the Dreadnought drift through space. He knew what was coming next. "We just kicked the hornet's nest," Reed muttered, stepping up beside him. Darius smirked. "Good." Mara crossed her arms, nodding. "They're going to come at us with everything they've got." "Let them," Darius said. "We'll be ready." Jinwoo whistled. "And by we, you mean—" Darius turned, his eyes glinting with a dangerous determination. "Not just us," he said. "All of humanity." The message spread far beyond the Scar. Across human space, word of the Revenant's victory ignited a fire. It was more than just a single battle. It was proof. Proof that humans could stand against the giants of the galaxy. Proof that they could take what was broken and make it stronger. And proof that the Scar were not untouchable. The United Earth Defense Corps took notice. Colonies once afraid of the Scar began to stir with something dangerous. Hope. Independent engineers and scientists, inspired by the Revenant, started looking at every scrap of alien wreckage with new eyes. What else could humanity reclaim? What else had the Scar abandoned that could be reborn? Weeks later, the first reports arrived. More derelict alien ships, forgotten, abandoned, were being found. And humanity? Humanity was making them fly. The Scar had dismissed them as scavengers. But now, as human warships began to emerge from once-dead wreckage, modified beyond recognition, bristling with new weaponry, the truth became undeniable. Scavengers? Number humanity was something else entirely. Something terrifying. Something unstoppable. And for the first time in centuries, the Scar Empire felt something they had long forgotten. Fear. The fear spread like wildfire. At first, the Scar High Command refused to believe it. Humans were pests, annoying, but ultimately insignificant. Yet the reports kept coming. More and more abandoned Scar vessels were vanishing from old battlefields, scrapyards, and forgotten war zones. The ships weren't just disappearing. They were coming back. But not as wrecks, not as relics, as something else. Scout ships reported strange readings in the outer systems, vessels with Scar design signatures, but moving erratically, their signals unreadable. Some of these ships had hull markings that didn't match any Scar fleet records. Humans had taken them, and worse, they had improved them. And then came the first counterattack. A Scar patrol fleet, 5 heavy cruisers armed with plasma cannons and a full complement of shock troops, was deployed to hunt down the Revenant. Their orders were simple. Track the scavenger ship, destroy it, and remind the humans of their place in the galaxy. They never returned. Instead, a lone, half-destroyed Sakaar escape pod drifted into a border station, broadcasting a single, static-filled message. "Wrong. They are not what we thought. They changed the ships. The weapons, the systems, they made them into monsters, not human anymore. Something worse, something... The message cut off. The SCAR officers listened in horror. No distress calls had been received from the patrol fleet. No wreckage was found. It was as if the ships had simply vanished. But they hadn't. Deep in the void, hidden within an uncharted system, the Revenant floated silently in a massive hangar carved into the side of an asteroid. Around it, other ships, ships that had once belonged to the SCAR, ships that had been left to rot, hovered in formation. Darius Cole stood on a maintenance platform, staring at the dozens of vessels humanity had reclaimed. Some were already refitted, bristling with experimental human-SCAR hybrid weaponry. Others were still being stripped down, reshaped, reborn. Reed walked up beside him, shaking his head in disbelief. "I knew we were onto something big, but this is a goddamn fleet." Darius smirked. "Not just any fleet." Mara stepped forward, wiping grease from her hands. "These ships, they're better than anything the SCAR have in active service. We've cracked their power cores, optimized their weapons, removed all the dumb redundancies they built in to control their own people." She turned to Darius, grinning. "We made them faster, meaner." Human Darius exhaled, looking out at the reclaimed warships. Each one was a testament to what humanity did best. Take what was broken and make it stronger. This wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't just revenge. It was evolution. And soon, the SCAR would learn exactly what that meant. The SCAR Empire prepared for war. Fleets were mobilized. Defensive positions were reinforced. The High Council declared that humanity would be exterminated for their transgressions. But it was already too late. Because when the SCAR war fleets finally arrived at the human colonies, expecting to find weak prey, expecting to crush the scavengers under their heel, they found monsters instead. Ships that should not exist. Ships that should have been rusting in the void. Ships that moved like ghosts, striking from impossible angles, outmaneuvering their best pilots. And when the first SCAR battleship exploded in a storm of human-engineered plasma, the realization hit like a hammer. They had made a mistake. They should have wiped humanity out when they had the chance. Now it was humanity's turn to hunt. The first battle was a massacre. The SCAR fleet came in full force. 3 Dreadnoughts, 7 heavy cruisers, and an armada of smaller corvettes. They expected a quick extermination, a show of power to remind humanity of its place. Instead, they were torn apart. From the bridge of the Revenant, Darius Cole watched the battle unfold. It wasn't even a fair fight. It was a slaughter. The SCAR had prepared for a battle against primitive human warships, predictable formations, outdated weaponry. They had not prepared for what humanity had become. The Revenant led the charge, moving faster than any SCAR ship had a right to. The stolen tech had been stripped down, rebuilt for efficiency, and merged with human ingenuity. The ship weaved through the battlefield, its railguns and plasma cannons ripping into enemy hulls like paper. The other reclaimed vessels followed suit. The Ghostblade, a former SCAR destroyer now piloted by Jin Woo, fired a modified disruptor beam that melted shields in seconds. The Blackhammer, a monstrous fusion of 3 different wrecks welded together, had enough firepower to level a colony. Every single ship was faster, deadlier, unpredictable. The SCAR were used to fighting regimented, disciplined enemies. They were not used to fighting humans who fought like wolves, who adapted mid-battle, who took risks no sane SCAR commander would even consider. On the enemy flagship, High Commander Zelvier watched in disbelief. His fleet was dying. This isn't possible," he whispered. "They shouldn't be capable of this." But they were. His Dreadnought shuddered as the Revenant fired another torpedo, breaching a secondary reactor. Emergency klaxons blared. Damage reports flooded his console. He looked at the screen again, and for the first time in his long, decorated career, he felt helpless. A transmission came through. A human face appeared on his display. Darius Cole, staring at him with calm, cold eyes. "Zelvier, right?" Darius said casually. "I remember you." Zelvier bared his fangs. You insignificant ape." Darius tilted his head. "Funny thing, you guys threw the Revenant away. Thought it was a failure." He leaned closer to the screen. "Now look at you, getting your ass kicked by your own trash." Zelvier roared, slamming a clawed fist against the console. "You think this changes anything? The Empire will wipe you out. You have no home fleet, no reinforcements. You are nothing." Darius smiled. "You still don't get it, do you?" he said softly. "You can burn our homes. You can kill our people. But we don't die. We endure. We take what's broken and make it stronger. That's what we do." He leaned back, voice turning ice cold. "And that's why you're going to lose." The Revenant fired its main cannon. A single, concentrated plasma beam cut through the Scar flagship's command deck. Zelvier never got to finish his last words. The Dreadnought erupted in a violent explosion, its burning wreckage tumbling through space. The rest of the Scar fleet broke. Some tried to flee. Others fought to the bitter end. It didn't matter. They all died. When the battle was over, Darius stood at the viewport, watching the remains of the enemy fleet drift into the void. He felt no pity, no regret. Mara exhaled beside him. "That was their best shot, and we just sent them home in body bags." Reed crossed his arms. "You think they'll back off?" Darius shook his head. "No." Jinwoo smirked. "Good." Darius turned away from the viewport. "Prep the fleet. We're moving out." Mara frowned. "Where?" Darius' expression darkened. "To the heart of the Empire." The bridge fell silent. Reed stared. "You're serious?" Darius nodded. "The Scar started this war, but we're going to finish it." Mara grinned. "Payback time?" Darius cracked his knuckles. "Hell yeah." The decision was made. No more running, no more hiding, no more waiting for the Scar to send their next wave. Humanity was taking the fight to them. The Revenant led the Armada into the void, slipping through uncharted lanes and forgotten hyperspace corridors. The Scar had grown complacent in their empire, their network of patrol routes and defense stations designed to keep lesser species in check. They had never considered the possibility of a force that didn't play by their rules. Darius stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical map. They weren't just launching an attack. They were waging a psychological war. Every system they passed through, they left wreckage in their wake. Abandoned Scar outposts, destroyed. Weak patrols, erased. Supply lines, cut. They struck fast, hit hard, and vanished before the Scar could organize a proper counterattack. They weren't just fighting the Empire anymore. They were dismantling it. The Scar High Command scrambled to respond. Reports of stolen ships, ghost fleets, and humans weaponizing forgotten technology flooded their war rooms. Panic set in. And then the message arrived. A single transmission, broadcast across every Scar military channel. Darius Cole's face appeared on their monitors. "You thought you could break us. You thought you could throw us away like garbage. But you don't understand what we are. Humans don't just survive. We rebuild, we reclaim. And now we've taken your trash and turned it into something you can't stop." He leaned closer, voice turning deadly. "Your empire is dying, and we're here to finish the job." The message cut out. And that's when the Scar realized humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were coming for vengeance. The final battle was inevitable. The Scar homeworld, once an untouchable fortress, was now vulnerable. The Imperial fleets were stretched thin, forced to chase ghosts across their own territory. And then, the Armada arrived. hundreds of stolen, reforged warships, a fleet of monsters crafted from the Scar's own discarded failures. The Empire had thought their old, broken ships were worthless. They were wrong, because now those same ships burned toward their capital like a storm of retribution. The Scar throne world trembled. The war that had started with a single abandoned wreck was about to end with an empire in flames. The Scar homeworld, Vorak Prime, loomed ahead, a massive industrialized planet, its surface covered in sprawling cities, military complexes, and planetary defense grids. For centuries, it had been the beating heart of their empire, a fortress no enemy had ever breached. Until now. Darius Cole stood on the command deck of the Revenant, watching as their fleet emerged from the void. Hundreds of ships, former Scar vessels, salvaged, reforged, and remade into something deadlier, spread out in attack formation. Their engines burned with human ingenuity, their weapons powered by stolen alien tech. The Scar defenses were already scrambling. Hundreds of their ships formed a protective perimeter around the planet, gun emplacements across Vorak Prime's surface lighting up as they charged to fire. A last stand. Darius smirked. They're scared. Mara, standing beside him, gave a sharp nod. Good. They should be. Reed leaned against the console, arms crossed. They've still got numbers on us. We do this wrong, and we get wiped out before we even break through the outer defense ring. Darius didn't look away from the viewport. Then we don't do it wrong. He tapped a command into the console, opening a fleet-wide transmission. All ships, engage. The battle erupted in a storm of fire, plasma, and railgun rounds. The Scar forces opened up with everything they had. Massive plasma lances streaked through space, slicing toward the incoming human fleet. Torpedoes rained down from orbital platforms, targeting the largest ships. But the human pilots weren't like the rigid, disciplined Scar warriors. They fought dirty. Darius watched as the Black Hammer plowed straight through a line of enemy frigates, using its reinforced hull as a battering ram before unleashing a broadside that turned 3 cruisers into burning wreckage. The Ghostblade danced between enemy fire, its modified Scar thrusters letting it pivot and maneuver in ways no Scar ship should have been able to. The stolen fleet moved unpredictably, breaking formation, reforming, adapting on the fly. The Scar, used to methodical, calculated warfare, struggled to keep up. Darius smirked as he saw their lines breaking. They never expected us to be better at using their own ships than they were. Mara laughed. Idiots thought we'd just patch them up and fly in like rookies. Reed, still watching the tactical display, frowned. They're pulling back, but something's not right. Darius followed his gaze. The Scar defense fleet wasn't retreating. They were repositioning. The realization hit like a hammer. They're luring us in, he muttered. A second later, an energy spike lit up their scanners. And then, the sky opened up. From the surface of Vorak Prime, a colossal cannon, something unlike anything humanity had ever seen, fired. A beam of pure energy, the size of a starship, tore through the battlefield, obliterating 3 human ships in an instant. The shockwave alone sent others spiraling out of formation. Mara cursed. What the hell was that? Reed's hands flew over the console. That's some kind of planetary defense cannon. It's tapping directly into the planet's core. Darius clenched his jaw. They've been holding back a superweapon this whole time. Another shot fired, this one grazing the Revenant. The shields flared, but the impact still sent a tremor through the ship. Darius grabbed the console to steady himself. Mara turned to him, eyes hard. We can't take that thing out from here. We need boots on the ground. Darius already knew what that meant. He exhaled sharply. Prep the dropships. Mara grinned. Thought you'd never say it. Minutes later, the invasion began. Dropships launched from the human fleet, streaking toward Vorak Prime's surface. Anti-air defenses roared to life, filling the sky with explosions and tracer rounds. Inside one of the leading transports, Darius sat with his team. Mara, Reed, Jin Woo, and a dozen other battle-hardened fighters. The ship shook violently as they pushed through the atmosphere. Red warning lights flashed. "This is going to be rough," the pilot yelled over the comms. "Hold on to something!" Darius gripped his harness and looked at his team. "This is it," he said. "We take out that cannon and Vorak Prime is defenseless. We take Vorak Prime and the Empire falls. No second chances." Reed checked his rifle. "Just how I like it?" Mara smirked. "Time to remind these lizards what happens when they underestimate humans." Jin Woo just cracked his knuckles. "Let's end this." The dropship lurched hard as it pierced through the lower atmosphere. Outside the viewport, the cityscape of Vorak Prime stretched beneath them, a massive alien metropolis about to become a battlefield. Darius exhaled, heart pounding. "Let's finish what we started." The dropship slammed into the landing zone. The doors blasted open, and humanity charged into the heart of the Scar Empire. The moment the dropship doors blasted open, chaos consumed the battlefield. Darius and his team surged forward, weapons raised as blaster fire filled the air. The Scar defenders were dug in, their monstrous reptilian forms hissing war cries as they fired from behind barricades. Humanity's warriors answered with fire and fury. The mission was clear: reach the planetary defense cannon, disable it, and bring the Empire to its knees. Mara ducked behind cover, picking off a Scar officer with a clean headshot. "We need to move fast. More reinforcements are inbound." Reed lobbed a grenade over a barricade. A thunderous explosion sent Sakaar bodies flying. "Then we'd better start running." Darius led the charge. They pushed deeper into the heart of the capital, fighting street by street, building by building. Overhead, the Revenant and the rest of the human fleet battled against the Scar armada. Even from the ground, the sky burned with the wreckage of destroyed ships. The war was coming to its final moment. After hours of brutal urban combat, the team finally reached the planetary cannon's control complex. The doors were sealed tight. No way in. Jin Woo smirked. "Guess we do this the fun way." He slapped a breaching charge onto the massive steel entrance. A second later, the explosion tore it apart. The humans stormed in, guns blazing. Inside, dozens of Sakaar officers scrambled to defend their last line of defense, but they weren't prepared for the sheer rage and precision of humanity's best warriors. One by one, they fell. Darius sprinted toward the main control panel, slamming a hacking device onto it. The console screen flickered. Reed covered him. "Tell me you can shut that cannon down before it fires again." Darius's fingers flew over the keys. The system was complex, alien, but that didn't matter. Humanity had built its entire survival on using Sakaar tech better than the Sakaar themselves. The cannon's core systems began overloading. Darius grinned. "Not shutting it down? Blowing it up." Mara's eyes widened. "Oh, I love this plan." A deep, mechanical groan shuddered through the facility. Alarms blared. The cannon's energy grid was destabilizing. The team ran for their lives. From orbit, the Revenant picked up the energy spike. "The cannon's going critical," a crew member shouted. Darius's voice came through the comms. "Get clear! This place is about to light up." The human fleet pulled back just in time, and then a blinding explosion ripped through Vorak Prime's skyline. The planetary defense cannon erupted in a colossal fireball, sending debris and plasma flames cascading through the capital. The explosion was so massive it could be seen from orbit. On the ground, Darius and his team barely made it out. sprinting for cover as the shockwave tore through the battlefield. And then, silence. The cannon was gone. Vorak Prime was defenseless. The Empire fell that day. With their capital world exposed, the human fleet descended upon it like a storm. The Scar High Command collapsed, their leaders either executed or fleeing into exile. And the Scar people. They finally understood. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. They had thrown humans away like trash, and humans had turned that trash into the weapon that ended them. On the ruins of the Scar Palace, Darius stood, looking over the burning city. Mara walked up beside him. "It's over." Darius nodded. "Yeah, it is." Reed leaned against a broken pillar. "So what now? We just declare ourselves the new overlords?" Darius shook his head. "Number we're not them." Jinwoo smirked. "Damn right we're not." The war was won, the Empire was dead, and humanity, once the discarded, the underestimated, the forgotten, now stood as the greatest force in the galaxy. And it all started with a broken starship.